Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Braja Prabhu
So, welcome back, a couple of new faces. And so welcome to this second part of our two-part seminar on masculine and feminine principles. I think we'll just recap a little, just briefly, what we were talking about yesterday. We talked about three main topics, you could say. First of all, we talked about how masculine and feminine principles are universal. They don't just relate to us as either male or female, they relate to everything in existence. Actually, everything in existence can be described using these terms of masculine and feminine. So, on what we call absolute reality or spiritual reality, the complete reality, there is only one masculine, that's Krishna. Everything emanates from Krishna. Krishna is the cause of all causes. So everything is feminine in relation to Krishna. Right? Krishna is the masculine, everything else is his energies, that's feminine. So masculine is the energetic and feminine is the energy. We're not on that absolute level. Our consciousness does not function on the absolute level right now. So we're on circumstantial consciousness or relative consciousness, you could say. So that means that everything is relative to us. That also means that masculine and feminine is relative to whatever situation we're in. So there's a ton of masculine and feminine stuff going on all over the place, basically. In fact, everything has both a masculine and a feminine aspect. If we say again that the masculine is the cause and the feminine is the effect, then we see that everything in existence is both a cause and an effect, depending on how you look at it. We use the example of this seminar. It's an effect of some training I've been going through in India, so in that sense it has a feminine aspect. It's also the cause of my good friend writing in his book now, so there's an aspect of masculinity in it also. So in that sense it's all pervading, it's everywhere. Therefore it's nice to know a little bit about how it functions. The second thing we discussed yesterday was how we live in a society that is based on basically illusion. It's based on the idea that we are controllers and enjoyers, that this world is here for my enjoyment, and the more I can control what's going on around me, the more I can enjoy, the better my life will be. So that has an effect, which is that it becomes attractive to go against your nature. Because if I go against my nature, that means I can control. I am in control. There is nothing inhibiting me or holding me back. I can do whatever I want. And we can see that in our society, where anyone who does something that's out of the ordinary or even downright stupid sometimes is hailed as, wow, he's really doing something special. In the art world, it's very popular to use random stuff to create art with that has nothing to do with art, actually. Oh, I'm painting using my own feces. Wow, amazing art, you know, because it goes against the nature of art. Why don't you use a paintbrush and paint? I mean, it's not like there's anything in feces that, you know. So the element of just going against your nature is seen as something valuable on its own. However, if we just look pragmatically at reality, we see that it's not functioning. People are stressed out, they're depressed, suicide rates, divorce rates, intoxication, violence, it's happening all over. Why? Because this is not actually working. So the idea of a seminar like this is that we learn a little bit about what is our nature so that we can act with our nature and then have less problems in our life, basically, right? From a Krishna conscious point of view, there is no material value. There is only spiritual value. So the material things that we surround ourselves with only has a value in so much that we're able to connect it to something spiritual. Everything is about relationships. When someone thinks that he will be happy if he had a Ferrari, it's not actually the Ferrari that will make him happy, it's the idea that people will like me if I have a Ferrari. So that's the spiritual aspect. The illusion is that he thinks it's the Ferrari. So that's the problem we're dealing with. And we're trying to kind of take a step back and look at it and hopefully get free from that illusory way of thinking. And then the third thing that we discussed yesterday was the actual mentality of males and females, male-female psychology, how it actually works, how that nature actually works different. So we were discussing how we have a gross body made of gross elements, and then we have a subtle body where the thoughts are happening, where the mentality is. And the male subtle body and the female subtle body consists of the same elements, but they work slightly different. So we were using the example of how a masculine subtle body, it has three elements: emotions, intelligence, and identity, right? So when we have a thought, we see something, we have a feeling about it, is it good or bad? Then we use our intelligence to figure out what are we going to do about that, and then based on our sense of identity we will make a choice of how actually to react to it. That's how thoughts work. For a man, this is three different rooms. He goes into one of the rooms and that's where he is. So when men get very excited, intelligence shuts off. You see it when men go out partying together or when they fall in love or something, all intelligence is gone because they're in the emotion room. When they're on their own, usually they have a tendency to go into the intelligence room. So they'll sit and work with their tools or their computers or whatever. It doesn't have to have any kind of practical application. It's just interesting to work with the intelligence. That's just a nice room to be in. And then when men are excelling at sports, business, whatever it may be, they're in the identity room because they are so focused on, I am the best football player in the world or something like that, that nothing else is going on, and that means they have the confidence to actually pull it off. So they're in one of these rooms, and that's where they are. For a woman, it's like one room with 3 different doors, so everything is working at the same time. You never see a woman where the intelligence is not working on some level. I mean, only if they're very, pushed to the level of panic, right? But usually some intelligence is there. So that means when the man is in love and he goes crazy and becomes all romantic, somewhere in the back she's thinking, is this a little too much? You know, it becomes a little, over the top sometimes. And the woman can see that because the intelligence is always working. It also means that the emotions are always working. So when the man goes into the intelligence rooms and start inventing a cure for cancer or a rocket that runs on water or something like that, he will be more effective because she will also be dealing with emotions and what will people think about, what will be the consequences of what I'm doing. He doesn't think about that. He just thinks about the logical, practical, mechanical things, right? So that means that men and women are good at different things. That's just how it is. So we sometimes hear that men are more intelligent than women. That's true in a sense, because intelligence is just a thing. It's not like men have more of it. It's not like a quantitative thing. It's Krishna's energy. But because the man can shut off the 2 other rooms, that he can use his full consciousness on only intelligence. So the woman can't do that, but it means that then the man is more intelligent, but the woman is more clever, because she can work with emotions and intelligence at the same time. That means she's more socially intelligent. So she can manipulate the man if she wants to. Or just, she has a more deeper understanding of what's actually going on. The man finds something that he has a very deep understanding of, but everything else is kind of, he's not really aware of it, right? So, in that sense, there's always a balance. Sometimes when we hear about these topics, it's out of balance. That either men are impersonal or women are not very intelligent, and then you're just focusing on that element. But if we look at it as it actually is, we see that no, it's not a matter of someone being better than the other. It's just a matter of in different areas, because we're in this relative reality. In different areas, men and women will function better or not so good, right? So that's the objective of our lives, is to cooperate. That's basically what Krishna wants us to do. We came here because we thought that things are about us, it's about me, I'm in the center, and this is a great opportunity to learn that it's actually about cooperation. And if we understand these energies and how these things work, then it'll work better, right? So that was basically what we were discussing yesterday. So today we'll talk a little more practical, right? How does that actually transfer into reality? How do men act? How do women act? What happens when they get into a relationship together, and how are we practically going to make that work if we want to be successful? Yes?
There's a quick one question you discussed nicely about this, the mind, intelligence and the identity, you say.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the mind, it has the function of feeling, and then the intelligence, it discriminates what should be done about it. What should be done about the feeling.
Not what should be done, what could be done.
What could be done.
Yeah, what can be done. What options do we have?
And then after the identity is, but that doesn't have a function of actually making the decision.
See, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. The intelligence comes up with options. What can we do here? So if we see someone who is intelligent, we see they have the karma of intelligence, they will have a lot of options. The intelligence will present a lot of different options. But the intelligence doesn't do anything, the intelligence doesn't care. The identity, or the false ego, will then make a decision on what should be done, right? But ultimately it goes back to the mind. The mind is where the senses are connected, the arms, legs, the active senses, the voice, are connected to the mind, so the mind has to be engaged, the mind has to accept what the identity says. This is what sometimes goes wrong when we in our movement have this mantra called "get off the mental platform," is that we miss the point that the mind actually has to be okay with what's happening. The mind is like a fuse. It's actually, the function of the mind is to protect the false ego, you could say, right? So if the false ego suggests something that's very much because of past experiences, has some very negative samskaras or something, the mind just won't accept it, right? So I have good karma for public speaking. I'm not, this is not something that is uncomfortable for me. I read a survey saying that actually generally people are more afraid of public speaking than of death. So that's a little strange for me, but for some, okay, so that's a thing. So then if the identity is, okay, let's say in this society we have this idea, we're both at the university, so we see a lot of young people who are at the university who maybe shouldn't actually be there. You know what I mean? That because the society pushes people to get a university degree, and actually in a society maybe only 10% of the population need a university degree for whatever you're going to be doing as a job, right? So you have a lot of young people there who are actually not academic in their way of thinking. They just know that if I get a university degree, then I'll get a nice job, then I can have a safe life and a family, and I can provide for them, So they'll be pushed into some situations like exams that they're not actually, the mind is not actually geared towards that, because they have this false identity of I'm an academic, the false ego will suggest to the mind that no, we're going to do this. So if you look at the statistics at Copenhagen University, 50% of the students there are stressed out throughout the year. When we get closer to exam time, it goes up to between 80 and 90%. Actually, will say, I'm stressed now. So that's not how we're supposed to be living, right? What's going on here is that the false ego, or the identity, is suggesting to the mind that we're going to do some stuff that the mind is not really happy about doing. And then at some point, the mind is just going to shut off and say, no, we're not doing it. I'm not doing it. You just go, you crash with stress. In Denmark, every day, 35,000 people call in sick with stress, So that's because of this problem. So the intelligence says what can be done. The identity says what should be done, but it's the mind that does it. And you can push the mind so far, just like if you run, you can push your body so far, and then at some point you collapse. The mind does the same thing. So the idea that, no, get off the mental platform doesn't work. It's like if you have a broken leg, let's go for a run. I can't, I have a broken leg. No, but you're not the body. No, but the body is the body, so you have to work with it, right? Does that make sense?
But we also have the living entities driving the chariot of the senses, consisting of the senses, mind, and the intelligence as a driver. So what's the role of the soul, the passenger? What's the role of the
the role of the soul, well, ideally the role of the soul is to stop identifying with that whole process. That's the problem, that we're identifying with it as this is me.
So it's not directly involved in the
no,
material decisions that we make, the soul is not involved on that level?
No, not actually. It's identifying with it, so it's involved with it, but it's actually just a reflection of Krishna's qualities that is being transmitted onto the soul. Does that make sense? So the soul is connected to the false ego. That's what happens when the whole material world is created. So you have the pradhan, which is just material energy without any substance. It's the effulgence of Krishna, basically. It's just nothing. There's nothing, no forms, no shapes. But then what happens is that the Lord glances, and by that glance he adds false ego. And the jiva's soul relates to that false ego and then gets sucked in. And then the false ego, this is described in Vishnu Purana, that actually if you take false ego and add more false ego, it becomes intelligence. And then you add more false ego, then it becomes the mind. You add more false ego, then it becomes ether, and then air, and then fire, water, and earth. So it's just different degrees of false ego. So because we identify with it, then we're all along for the ride. So
it's interesting. The soul actually, the soul, to say soul actually not making any of the decisions.
No, that's why we say under the modes. They're not, I mean, if someone is under the modes, you're not making any decisions. So what we're trying to do with the Krishna consciousness movement is to remove ourselves from that. And when we do that, then we can actually make decisions based on real ego. And then, depending on what the mix is, then we will be able to actually act freely. So it's funny, just to give an example, when I'm in India for half a year, it's a very spiritual place. It's very, it's described that it's 1,000 times as potent in terms of self-realization as anywhere else on the planet. So when I get back, I immediately, when I land in the airport, I can feel the consciousness. It's just a very heavy vibration of confusion. So I go into a shop. This is just one random example I remember. I was in a shop and there was this new guy at the counter, and he didn't know how the teller worked, and he was slow, So we were like 3-4 people in the queue, and immediately I sensed this guy behind me. I couldn't even see him, but I sensed this guy behind me. There's something going on. He's going to protest. And just after that, he said, "Can you open another teller or something?" This is not his decision. It's just the modes pushing him, because he's under the modes. He's identifying with the situation, and then the modes just drag him along for the ride. That's why the soul is described as the passenger. It's not actually doing anything. It's not, you're not doing it. You're just under the modes. So that's what's going on. And the modes affect men and women slightly different. So then, if we understand that difference, then it'll be easier for us to kind of detach ourselves from it, or at least use it to our advantage. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So this whole idea, no, I'm not the body, Prabhu. No, but you think you are. That's why you have a material body. So it doesn't work to just say that. It doesn't get you out. But to actually understand what it is that we're dealing with here, that will help you to get out. So we're just trying with this seminar to give some practical examples of how, like we were talking about the subtle body with 3 rooms in 1 room, because then when we interact with each other, it'll be easier to see what is actually going on.
Yes, sure.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
with the second part. Sorry to take some
No. It's yeah. Yeah. So that was what we were discussing yesterday, basically.